Hello, great evening to you. Warm welcome to Business Live. Coming up in this edition, Moodys upgrades ratings assigned to Government of Ghana structured bonds to CAA3 from CA, but maintains a stable outlook. UK government hints of new round of trade talks with Ghana in a bid to support the country's program with the IMF.
The best way we can do that with Ghana is helping them put themselves back on a sustainable footing where there's really reliable, solid investment opportunities, and also lots and lots of businesses in Ghana being able to exploit these trade programs that we've got so that they can export to the rest of the world as well, including the UK.
Also in this bulletin, Social Security and National Insurance Trust, SNIT, expresses worry about the growing number of workers who are not contributing to pension fund.
You have about close to 1.2 million from employees within the private sector. You have about 600%, representing about 36% of all workers.
We have details of these and many others coming your way all in a moment. Please stay. Always a joy to have you on. I am Pius Kojo Baka. To our very first story. Ratings agency Moodys has upgraded the ranking assigned to the Government of Ghana structured bonds to CAA3 from CA. Moodys, however, kept the outlook as stable despite reviewing the ratings on these new bonds. George Yafe has the rest of the story.
Moodys, in his latest report on Ghana, stated that the action was influenced by the fact that these new bonds that have been issued by the Government of Ghana are not exposed to significant risk for now. This is more of an advice to investors or those that are holding these bonds that government's inability to settle these papers have improved a little bit, hence the action. Moodys noted that following the completion of government's debt restructuring program for the domestic papers, the future expected losses have been reduced. It also maintained that the country has achieved a degree of fiscal relief and therefore unlikely to seek another form of debt restructuring going forward. But despite this action, Moodys noted that Ghana is still within the bracket of highly speculative bonds or risk issued by a country or company. On the outlook, the ratings agency was of the view that it doesn't see any challenge for now, even though negotiations on the external debts might be a major determinant on any future action on Ghana's credit ratings by Moodys.
And Ghana's program with the International Monetary Fund has received the required buy-in from all social actors, including organized labor. That's according to the country representative of the IMF, Dr. Leandro Medina. There are fears that the government will struggle to implement the program because of the expected opposition from these interest groups. But Dr. Medina insists they have been able to get all these actors on board.
First of all, in terms of the strength of the program is quite strong, and if implemented as planned, it will get Ghana out of this crisis, get the debt sustainable, and it would lay the foundations for inclusive growth. And the policies are the policies that are needed and reforms that are needed to get us there, and we have seen a very strong commitment from the authorities. In terms of the consultation with stakeholders. Every mission that visits Accra, we meet, of course, with the authorities, we meet with the Minister of Finance, we meet with Bank of Ghana, we meet with banks, we meet with the civil society. We have met with the TUC, we have met with GUTA, with the unions. We meet also the opposition in the context of the Parliamentary Finance Committee. So in that sense, we are comfortable that we have been consistently.
You have the buy-in of all these actors.
With all the relevant actors in Ghana, where we have been able to, not only to explain what we are really discussing and what are the aims of the discussion, but mostly to hear their concern, which is extremely important for us, to hear the concern of the different stakeholders. And then finally, you mentioned parliamentary approval. My understanding is that a memorandum will be prepared by the government of Ghana and will be sent to Parliament, mainly explaining that a new financing from the IMF has arrived and how this financing will be used.
All right, so we've been joined by economist Dr. Patrick Esume for more on this. Pleasure you could join us on Business Live, sir. Now, let's first start with disclosure by the International Monetary Fund resident representative, Dr. Medina, that all the social partners are now supporting Ghana's program. I guess this is good, right?
Good evening, and good evening to listeners. Thanks for having me. I think, it seems to me that there's some misunderstanding here, because the rep seemed to equate the fact that in their mission visits they consult with all these groups to mean that people have bought into this. When he gave details, what he's saying is that in their visits they consult all these stakeholders and they get their perspectives. So I'm not sure at what point government secured this buy-in from all these stakeholders, whether after the document itself has been released. Because mind you, these stakeholders and Ghanaians in general, we didn't really know a lot of the specifics of what was in the document until the approval was sought. So I'm not sure whether he's referring to having a broader stakeholder buy-in after everybody has seen what is in the document or during the process of consultation. Of course, having stakeholder buy-in is absolutely important for the success of the program. But it seems to me that it's a little bit of a stretch to say that the program has secured wide stakeholder support.
And especially we getting to know the stance of the TUC on this whole IMF program. But what will this really mean for implementing the reforms under the fund program?
I think, on one hand, by the way the program has been designed, it appears that government has to be able to implement some of the harder decisions by way of as part of the preconditions, right?
Yeah.
So if you talk about the domestic debt exchange, which is really a very difficult thing to push through, and then the new taxes, the 3 new taxes that we've seen, the tariff adjustment, you get the sense that those are some of the harder decisions. And already, not necessarily through buy-in, but the government managed to get them passed and then it's implementing. You might have heard GUTA complaining that they want a review of those taxes at the media review. So the government has been able to get some of the difficult actions done. I'm not sure that it had broad-based consensus. It just succeeded some way, somehow, to get them implemented. So on that score, I think, it's positive for the ability to implement the program, but I think it's a little bit of a stretch to call that broad-based support.
Dr. Suming, now, the IMF is also pushing for the country ownership of the IMF program, basically. What could be the impact on Ghana's economic recovery, you would say?
Well, first of all, I don't think you look for country ownership after the document has been prepared and agreed. If you want the country ownership, then, the whole country should have been part of the whole preparation and the understanding of the difficulties and identification of the solutions and the specific measures. So for me, it's a non-starter to say after the document has been prepared, without many people know exactly what was in it, to come and say you want national ownership. But be it that is me, I mean, a big chunk of the document and some of the harder things were things that the document says was proposed by the Ministry of Finance. So in that sense, I think you can say there's that sense of what the Ghanaian government is proposing to do. But, at least now, it's still important for the government to still do more consultation or more engagement, as it were, to ensure that people understand exactly why we are here and what we need to do. But also beyond this, to explain to Ghanaians why this is necessary to stabilize the macroeconomy, and then ahead beyond that, explain to Ghanaians what will happen after this and why, after this, or what measures are being put in place so that we don't return to the extreme difficulties we've had in the last year or so.
Let me pick your thoughts on Moody's recent ratings, of course, which we had not too long ago. Basically, describing Moody's rating, the beginning of good credit ratings that will be sustained, you think?
Well, I think, the way I read it, it's a rating reflecting the fact that we've agreed to, do some difficult things to try and build, to try and rein in our debt and then get on the path to debt sustainability. It is, so in that score, it is good. It's just mostly reflecting the fact that we've agreed to an IMF program, and there's the expectation that going forward, our debt will be brought to sustainable levels and the country will be in a better state to pay its debt. But it's not really an upgrade it's not an upgrade reflecting any substantial improvement in how the economy or even the macroeconomy is functioning now, because we know that the indicators are still not as strong as they could be. But it's a reflection of the fact that at least we have now agreed a program and a set of policies that is expected to improve the macroeconomy.
And I guess this should send a positive signal to investor community, basically.
Well, on one hand, yes, but don't forget that CAA3 is still a very low ranking. It's not that suddenly we are looking. Our debt is, it hasn't changed the fact that we still can pay our debt. In fact, we haven't even concluded the restructuring, especially the external side. So while it is showing the right direction, I think we are nowhere near, saying that the Ghana's macroeconomic environment is strong. Therefore, investors should start flooding it.
Dr. Patrick Esume, we are indeed grateful for your insight this very moment. It is an economist speaking to us there. Let's move on to some other stories. Though on the economy, the UK government has hinted of a new round of trade talk with government to support its program with the IMF. The UK government is part of several donor partners that are expected to come on board after the country secured a program with the fund. Correspondent Manuel Cranting has been speaking to UK's International Business Minister Nigel Hedelson in London.
Well, we definitely support the agreement with the IMF. It's really important. It's really important for Ghana. And we've had really constructive conversations as well about how we can help and support Ghana with its development, with its ability to raise taxes and all sorts of other areas. So we're there also to cooperate and provide advice. So we've got a really important trading relationship, but it's the valuable relationship we have as well with sharing experiences that can also help. That can be government, but it can also help identify opportunities, for example, with the City of London. So there's a whole range of opportunities out there that we're there to help Ghana and indeed other countries. Always engage in constructive conversations to see what we can do to help. But of course, we've got a mix of commercial opportunities and business opportunities, but also we're there to help also with our aid program. Programme as well. So we work very carefully with FCDO and the Foreign Office on a whole range of opportunities. My role at the Department of Business and Trade is to encourage trade opportunities and investment opportunities, and that's really important. The best way we can do that with Ghana is helping them put themselves back on a sustainable footing where there's really reliable, solid investment opportunities, and also lots and lots of businesses in Ghana being able to exploit these trade programs that we've got so that they can export to the rest of the world as well, including the UK.
And now the UK government is warning Ghana and other African countries to be wary of their engagement with China. The Asian country has jumped ahead of its competitors in the West and the worth of bilateral engagement as it has with Ghana and others on the continent. For instance, while China holds nearly $2 billion for Ghana's bilateral debt portfolio, the UK holds just about $430 million, about 4 times more. Listen to Minister for International Business and Trade in the UK, Nigel Heatherstone, who has been telling Manuel Cranton whether this should be a sign of worry at all.
Easier to also enable even greater opportunities in many developing countries to export to the UK. Well, the UK is one of the biggest investors in Africa as a whole. And we've got a long-established relationship with many, many countries, which we really value. We really value them on a cultural and political level, but increasingly so on a trading level as well. So we want to make our presence felt, and also we want to be there because there's advantageous opportunities on both sides. We want to do trade because it creates jobs, it creates opportunities, generates taxes, removes people out of poverty. But we've also got a lot of activity going on in aid in Africa as well, and that's an important part of our philosophy as well. So we're there to help and help those economies grow. Not every country is motivated by the same things, but we are very much motivated by trying to make sure our friends and allies can seek some of the economic opportunities and the ability for social mobility and all of those great things that comes with further economic development, and we want to be there partnering with these countries. We are doing trade deals around the world. We've done over 70 trade deals since we left the EU, as well as the one with the EU. We recently signed an agreement with CPTPP. What we want to do is create opportunities for British businesses as well, right around the world. But these opportunities are mutual. You know, trading is good. It really helps lift people out of poverty. It's good for economic growth. It's good for economies, and that goes for developing economies as well. So we've done over 70 trade deals. We just signed a deal with CPTPP as well. So what we're really keen to do is find opportunities in areas of the world where there's growth, and that goes for goods and services, because we believe in free and fair trade, and we believe that there's many opportunities in Africa, but that's mutual opportunities, and we'll be there standing with these countries as we exploit those opportunities to the fullest extent possible.
You're still watching Business Live here with me, Pius Kojo Baka. More after this. Hello, welcome back. The Social Security and National Insurance Trust, SNIT, has expressed worry about the growing number of workers not contributing to pension fund. Out of the over 9.9 million workers, only 1.8 million are active SNIT contributors. Speaking to Joy Business at a workshop to educate some selected journalists on the relevance of SNIT payments, Head of Public Affairs at SNIT, Charles Akwe Gashan, said the training is to equip journalists with more insight on pension. Here's more.
The sensitization program was to afford journalists the opportunity to appreciate the computation and relevance of pension contributions. Speaking to Joy Business, Head of Public Affairs Unit of SNIT, Charles Akwe Gashon, expressed worry about the low contributions of salaried workers in the country. He warned of dire economic consequence for uninsured workers when they hit the retirement age.
At the moment, we have very limited number, that is about 1.9 million workers contributing to the SNIT scheme. And if you look at the breakdown, you have about close to 1.2 million from employees within the private sector. You have about 600%, representing about 36% of all workers, 600,000 plus, representing 36% of all workers from the public service. Only 38,000 are self-employed.
Out of the over 9.9 million salaried workers, only 1.9 million pay their pensions regularly. What this means is that if the narrative doesn't change, only 1.9 million workers stand a chance of benefiting their pension contributions when they retire at 60. Charles Akwe Gashon believes regular engagement with the media can help in improving pension contributions in the country.
Once we sustain this education and we always focus on reaching out to them, irrespective of where they find themselves, whether online in their various places of worship, we believe we'll be able to help reduce the old age poverty in the future by increasing more people on the scheme. Our hope actually is to make sure that we cross this 1.9 million. Next year we should be talking about 3 million.
Meanwhile, the private and public sectors contributed 62.14% and 36.03% of the Social Security and National Insurance Trust respectively, while the self-employed contributed 1.8%.
Now, the Data Protection Commission has issued a public warning on data breaches by operators of online loan apps. Data Protection Commission says it has received tons of complaints regarding the harassment and debt-shaming approaches these online digital loan services are using to deal with fraudsters. The Commission says operators of the online apps, which are mostly unlicensed, are violating the country's data protection. Patricia Edusei-Poku is the Executive Director of the Commission.
Individuals are empowered to complain, ask for redress, to correct data, and the data controllers, those in this ecosystem that have collected the data, they are supposed to have collected legitimately. They are supposed to have explained at the point of collection the purpose for which they are collecting, which they may have done, but in small print. It has to be in plain enough language, and the consent that they get from this individual should be explicit consent, which means that the people should have been fully briefed and fully informed about how the data would be used against them, and they should have been given the opportunity to give an affirmative action to suggest that they are happy with the way the information will be used at a later date. People have a right to, when they are being harassed and distressed, to stop the processing of their data. Right now, all these rights have been infringed upon because the individuals haven't found a way to complain to these data controllers, the online loan app owners. Neither have we, the Commission, been able to track these defaulting institutions down to hold them accountable. All this is against the Data Protection Act, Section 46, that says that they must be registered with us, for example, and all the principles of data protection have been breached in this act.
In some other news, ratings agency Fitch has assigned 4 Nigerian banks with subsidiaries in Ghana at B- with stable outlooks. The banks are Access Bank, Guarantee Trust Bank, UBA, and Zenith Bank. According to Fitch, the banks are robust with strong buffers. However, they continue to contend with US dollar shortages and the Central Bank of Nigeria's highly burdensome cash reserve requirement. Fitch therefore expects reform progress under the new administration, including the elimination of fuel subsidies and gradual liberalization of the naira. Now, this is what senior finance lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Benjamin Amwa, had to say.
We can look at it in 2 ways. We can look at the parent in Nigeria, which is the parent bank that more or less, has subsidiaries across Africa. We look at the 4 banks: GT Bank, Access Bank, Zenith, and UBA. Realize that is the parent's concentration of its investment in the sovereign instrument of Nigeria that is influencing the current performance, and the extent to which these banks are geographically, dispersed across Africa. What is rather showing from the report is that the performance of the Ghanaian subsidiary, i.e. the losses that some of the Ghanaian subsidiaries of these banks have made, is what we have negatively impacted on the group as a whole. So as the Nigerian economy picks up, these banks will have their books improved simply because of the strength of the Nigerian economy. The case of the Ghanaian banks or the Ghanaian subsidiaries of these banks are quite different from the current assessment from the parent level.
Thanks so much for being part of the bulletin. I am Pius Kojo Baka. You can always get business stories when you log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. Let's meet tomorrow. Bye.